Hi everyone, my name is Martin and welcome to another great edition of MP Astro. Now, what I'd like to show you is my brand new Dobsonian telescope. This is the Skywatcher 250p Dobsonian. All it is a standard Newtonian, very basic Dobsonian mount, obviously on a simple alt-azimuth up and down motion, like a Lazy Susan cradle. Okay, the mount is very simple, very basic, and the reason why I got this telescope, I'll be honest with you guys and girls, I've had some bad moments of not being able to image lately, because the clouds and the weather has been absolutely appalling, particularly in the UK and everywhere in Europe. It's just not been really good at all. However, there has been some moments of clear spells which I found that this telescope will offer me some fantastic views. You wouldn't believe how quick and easy for such a size telescope like this to just set up. It takes 2 to 3 minutes to get the mount base set up and put the telescope tube, stick the eyepiece, align the Finderscope, off and away. You're literally looking at deep sky objects, planets, the moon, everything with this high aperture telescope. Bear in mind, when you get a telescope like this, visual, people expect bigger aperture, you expect to see more. Yes, that is true, but that depends on your sky conditions. It depends on variety of things as well, how bad the light pollution there is and everything. Me personally, if I was a beginner, you cannot beat a Dobsonian telescope. If you really want a good telescope that's going to be simple to use, I would highly recommend the Dobsonian any day. If you aim high for the budget, you can get a really good 6-inch Dobsonian for around £299. This telescope here is around about £539, and this is the 10-inch aperture. This telescope is just on the boundaries of being still portable and still easily to carry around. So I've got the biggest aperture. I'll be honest with you guys and girls, I did have a 12-inch Dob. When you upgrade to that kind of telescope, you are literally carrying 60 kilograms of weight. A good 8-inch aperture, which is the Skywatcher Classic 200p, is also a very good all-rounder as well, and again that's got plenty of aperture for a lot of images to see. Alright, you can see a lot with these telescopes, so if you really are considering buying a serious beginner telescope, set yourself the budget of £299 or above. Look no further than this 150mm aperture up to the 10-inch aperture of this style of telescope. And believe me, you cannot go wrong. You will definitely see a lot of bang for your buck. And believe me, I had that 12-inch Dobsonian and it really was a fantastic telescope. The views were absolutely amazing. Looking at Orion Nebula, you can actually physically see a lot of cloud structure in there. This 10-inch aperture won't reveal as much as the 12-inch, but it comes pretty close. And don't get me wrong, I do like astrophotography, but you cannot beat visual astronomy without a doubt. And to be honest with you, I'm glad I've got this telescope, because there's times where I've had clear skies for a little bit. This takes 5 minutes to set up, bang, and you're away. And so I've had a bit of withdrawal symptoms because 3 or 4 months of no clear skies or moments of clear skies. I've been using this telescope quite a lot. So at the moment, imaging is at a standstill. I've got plenty of projects that I can go through, but not being able to do much with it. However, this is not a product review of the Skywatcher telescope. Right, this Dobsonian, I have seen loads of videos out how to assemble it, unboxing, you name it. I am not going to go into depth with this telescope. Okay, because there is loads of videos out on YouTube that show you the unboxing of the setting up the mount, the telescope, tube, everything. To me, there's plenty of information out there. However, what I do like to show in this video is improvements onto this telescope. Because at the moment, I have seen higher end Dobsonians at higher price that offer a lot more functions than the basic Skywatcher Classic. Now the Classic is good, but there are some improvements that I feel that needs to be undertaken. Now the Skywatcher series of Classic Dobs has its limitations. The main problem with Skywatcher is that the telescope's tubes themselves are outstanding, right? The optical quality on the telescopes are amazing. But one thing I found out with Skywatcher is they tend to cheap out. They focus on the optics, that's fine, but then they tend to cheap out on the mount itself. Particularly like the EQ5. If you looked at those series of my videos on the EQ5 and the NEQ6 mount, there are certain components that they use is really cheaply made. Don't get me wrong, the optical tube, the telescopes themselves are brilliant, but the actual mountings that they use and the parts they use are cheaply made, and sometimes they're not fit for purpose. So, and I'm going to say that by experience, because personally I feel that Skywatcher need to up the game with their products. I have owned a lot of their telescopes, and over the past few years I have seen quality has dropped slightly, and it really is quite shocking really how they are increasing the prices and yet the quality of the products are slowly diminishing, and that's not acceptable. I'm going to be honest with you guys and girls. £539 is still pretty expensive. Many years ago I have seen telescopes of this class that are a lot cheaper, and to be honest with you, prices have gone up so much, and it's unreal. And I remember many years ago that this telescope was around about £300. The price has jumped massively, and to be honest with you, it really is quite shocking. It's hit hard on a lot of people that want to start out in astronomy and start looking up in the night sky. And so everything, cost of living is going up, and it's putting a lot of strain. My best advice to you guys and girls, if you're in a limited budget but you're looking for a really good telescope for astronomy purposes, and you want something to see the wow factor, then you can't go wrong with a good 6-inch to 10-inch Dobsonian, because they're still portable, they're still sort of lightweight, you can still set them up in 5 minutes, and to be honest with you, a telescope like this really is the best bang for the buck, particularly when times are harsh. You can still enjoy astronomy. The only option I would say to you guys and girls is, if you can't afford new, look for something that's second hand. However, that is getting very hard to find as well nowadays, because a lot of people are getting rid of astronomy equipment and they're expecting stupid prices, like literally selling the telescope second hand a lot more than what you can buy brand new, and that's unacceptable. There is a few people out there that are taking advantage of this. They buy the telescope and then they sell it on because either they getting bored of using it, or they are just making a profit or making a quick buck, which is unacceptable. To me, there's a lot of second-hand telescopes out there. There are some genuine people that will sell a telescope second-hand at a lower price, but there are a few out there that are charging the same price for a brand new one or even more, which is totally wrong. Again, like I said before, through the past, do your homework, do your research, look at the price for a brand new one, compare the price to what is advertised, particularly on eBay and such and forth. Check the prices out. If they're asking too much, ask them to lower the price. If they don't, leave them. Who cares? Just look for a better deal. There are better deals out there, and to be honest with you guys and girls, personally, there are a lot of good astro companies, retailers like River Valley Optics, First Light Optics, you name it. There's loads of telescope retailers out there that will sell you a really good telescope, brand new quality, and the good thing is they have got 2 years warranty. So if anything goes wrong with your telescope, then you can always send it back and get a replacement. So that's why I always say to you guys and girls, if you want to enjoy astronomy, I know times are getting harsh, the Dobsonian telescope is the saviour for a lot of us. Alright, if you want to enjoy the night sky, then this Dobsonian will be a game changer for a lot of people out there, particularly for the beginners. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to super tune this classic Dobsonian, making use while the skies are pretty bad and the weather's pretty bad. I'm going to super tune this Dobsonian from Skywatcher and make it better, okay? Believe me, I've worked out a bit of a budget. You do have to spend a bit of money towards it, but I will highlight the problems. So before we start, please hit a like button, and if you're new to this channel, please subscribe to this channel, and again, share this video out, because if you've got a Dobsonian like this one, for example, you can do this project yourself. By sharing this video out, can help many others as well in the process. And another thing is, hit the notifications bell. By hitting that bell, will keep you updated to the latest videos I'm going to bring out very, very soon. Once the weather clears up, believe me, my projects list is like this. It really is, but it's just I need those times of clear skies. So for that on, if you're interested on this super tune, on this classic 250p, please keep watching and let's do this. So, these are the problems I have with this telescope. First thing I don't like is this. Like most Dobsonians, they do put this anti-reflection paint, and straight away look at the glare that you get from the optical tube. I have no idea why manufacturers continue to make this. I think they just do it because it's cheap. It's the cheapest way to obviously to keep costs down and then maximise profit. Yes, it's okay, it does the job, this anti-reflection tube, but again, I do not like this deep shine whatsoever. So again, I'm going to flock this main tube, because end of the day, flocking the main tube, again, if you've not seen that video, Get Flocked, I did a flocking series I've done a video on the Newtonian 114mm Skyhawk, and I flocked that main tube. We're going to do the same process with this telescope, because flocking will actually increase the contrast and reduce the glare and maximize the views. I cannot stress it enough how effective flocking is. Some people will disagree. Believe me, there's a lot more other people that have done flocking themselves, and they can see the real difference. There are a few people out there that don't agree with what I say, but believe me, it does help. Again, you don't have to do this super tune of flocking the main tube, alright? It's not a drama. The other thing is, you do get a 50mm Finderscope. It is good, however, I don't like the straight through. I don't know why it is, but also when you add this Finderscope, one thing I found out is it's not too bad on the balancing. I've slackened off these parts here. At the moment you can put 1¼ eyepieces and it balances out quite well. However, when you stick an eyepiece like this, which I have an Explorer Scienfitic 2-inch format 100° eyepiece, this is an amazing eyepiece, however very expensive eyepiece. But as soon as I put this, just you watch. At the moment, look at this. Whoa, look at that, is just, that's horrendous. As you can see, it's not too bad on the top position, but as soon as I get an angle, this main optical tube wants to crash. And it's okay if you just tighten up the friction plate. Okay, that's fine. It's still top heavy, and it's an absolute nightmare that you have to tighten this down that much that you're literally going to squash the bearings here on the friction. And also, when you come to look at objects in the night sky, it's very rough. Alright, it's not smooth at all. It's not acceptable. And the whole idea with Dobsonian is to allow you to use 2-inch eyepieces. Now this is quite a heavy eyepiece. This is around about 1 kilogram. But if you're going to use a Finderscope or a Telrad, or you've got the eyepiece there, this scope is not balanced, not one bit. Alright, it's very top heavy on one side. So the main mirror might be a big chunk of glass, but it's just not right at all. Don't get me wrong, it's not the best focuser here, but the focuser is just a standard creation focuser. That is not too bad. I'm not really concerned about this because I can still use this focuser for visual purposes. You may want to upgrade the focuser, but I'm not going to do that because the focuser itself is really good, and even with a large eyepiece like this, it grips. I've got really good focus, travel, and it locks perfectly. I've not got any dramas with the actual focuser itself. Just to keep costs low, I do, you know, if you want to upgrade the next focuser, then that's fine, but then expect to pay an extra 140 to about £300 for a decent focuser. Can't really see the point of that, because considering you paid for a telescope around £300 or more, it's not really worth it if you're going to use it for visual use. And personally, a Dobsonian is really mostly just for visual. You may want to use a telescope to image the moon or the planets via a DSLR camera or a mobile phone. It's completely fine. But the biggest issue with this 250p is that it's not the well balanced telescope. I feel that the actual center point should be further a little bit more to about here to compensate for the extra weight at the top. So that's my main issue with this telescope. The other thing is I don't like the Allen keys. Again, using the Allen key, you do get tools, it's completely fine to do the collimation. However, not so great when you're fiddling around, because these screws can round off. Not really a big fan of that either. So that will be something I need to change on that. The other thing is at the bottom of the Dob mount, the motion is ridiculously rough. There's too much friction there. Now some people like a bit of friction, but on the Dob base, going the left and right motion, it is rigid. And don't forget, the bolt, adjustment bolt at the bottom, okay, it's loose, okay? It's not tight at all. As you can see here, I can turn, alright, it's adjusted in a way that it's not tight, it's just got a bit of free play, and it's on Teflon pads as well. And just to say it's only got 3 measly Teflon pads, the base, the movement on the base is ridiculously, it's too stiff. And it's like when you're moving around the night sky and you're looking through, you're trying to image a target, it's sort of hit and miss. You can actually miss a target because the motions are not that great. The other thing is, if we scroll down, if we tilt the telescope, right, if we tilt the telescope, you hear that knocking noise. That's basically here, at this point, this primary mirror is knocking against the thread insert there. So you can hear it, it's not very good at all. And so what that could do, as it's hitting the base there, you can see it there, that could actually knock the collimation on the primary mirror. So if you tilt it in a certain way and you move it, bang, you can knock the collimation on your primary mirror. So don't really like that at all. And also the next thing I don't like is, yes, the friction is good. Alright, it does grip really well. But what I don't like is, if we take a closer look, see there's like bearings. Now the bearings are okay. They do the job, they do have a lot of resistance, but again, the movement on the actual telescope, yes, you do need a bit of friction, but one thing I found is that these are not great. And personally, I feel like that the main optical tube should be a lot smoother than that. Particularly when you've got a lot of weight on the top and you have to tighten this down like something chronic. You're literally tightening this one down to compensate the extra weight on the top. So straight away, the movement on here is not that great either. So yeah, you want a bit of friction, but then these don't move very freely at all. So it's not great. Believe it or not, I do like some of the nice touches. I do like the focus is not too bad. The friction tensioner is okay. I do like how there's a carry handle where you can carry the base and then carry the main tube separately. That's also a good feature. This, however, some people say that they don't use this. Personally, I use this all the time. Right, and this is actually really good. Right, there's not many telescopes that has this. I found that really useful. Alright, so you've got this control handle here where you can move the telescope up and down. I actually use that all the time. So as you can see there are a few glitches on the 250p. Now, don't get me wrong, you've got the 200p, which is the 8-inch Dobsonian, and you've got the 150p. Now, all those components are absolutely fine on the 8-inch and the 6-inch Dobsonian. However, on the 10-inch model, I feel that whatever the moving parts they use, it is not great. Personally, I think they should have put in better components than that, and this is the whole idea of this video, is to take you through to improve on the 250p. You can also use this video to improve on the 200p or the 150 series of the Dobsonians. And as you can see before, I mentioned about the eyepieces. Get yourself some decent 1.25" Plossl eyepieces or 2-inch eyepieces. You can really bring out a lot of detail. These standard ones from Skywatcher are like modified Kellner. They're not the best eyepieces, but they can get you started. Personally, these are okay for the time being, but Plossl eyepieces, especially 1.25" Plossl eyepieces, you can pick good Plossl eyepieces around 20 to 30 pounds. And to be honest with you, they're much better glass than these ones, and get ones that are 52-degree field of view as well. You can get some really good views. The 25mm you get with Skywatcher is probably the one you use the most. That's okay. The 10mm, I'd rather throw that in the bin, because personally this is the worst eyepiece you can use on that telescope. Personally, get yourself a decent Plossl for the high power, particularly like a good 12mm. I think 10mm is a bit too much. Alright, I think a 12mm decent Plossl eyepiece is probably best. Or get yourself a decent Plossl eyepiece like a 14 to 15mm, because that is a good general purpose eyepiece. If you get a 15mm or 14mm, between those figures, you get a medium power that you can see not just on the planets but also deep sky objects, and you can see it in good detail. Personally, a 10mm for deep sky is a bit too much. This is probably good for planets, but you can always get a Barlow lens as well. Again, 2 times Barlow lens is good for this setup. But these eyepieces are not great, so get a good budget Plossl eyepieces, and I'll provide a link below. If you want to see the wow factor and you want to see more detail and see more better light grasp, I would highly recommend using the 2-inch format eyepieces, because they will give you a much wider field of view, and a good 70-degree is probably all you need. Okay, 100-degree, yeah, it's brilliant, but expect to pay 400 to 500 pounds for that kind of eyepiece, which is way too much. This is almost the cost of this entire setup, that eyepiece alone. So that Explorer Scienfitic is great for the wow factor, but personally there are some good 2-inch eyepieces at 70-degree field of view that are just as good and as effective. The ones that I use are the Skywatcher Panaviews. I've got a good 32mm and I've got a good 26mm 2-inch format Panaview eyepieces, and they are perfect for this telescope. All right, they are bring out the light grasp on deep sky objects and a much wider field of view. So they're great 2-inch to increase the light grasp on galaxies and nebula. So if you want to see faint fuzzies be a little bit better, not much difference, but a little bit better than the Plossl eyepieces, then a good 2-inch format eyepiece you can't go amiss. Before you buy your Dobsonian, the next accessory, and it is a must, is get yourself a Collimator. I have a Lazer Collimator, or I have a Cheshire type Eyepiece Collimator. Okay, these are a must. Okay, because when I guarantee you now, guys and girls, when you buy your first Dobsonian mount, the first thing when you take that telescope out of the package, the mirrors, the secondary and the primary mirrors will be out of alignment, guaranteed. And I have never come across any Newtonian that's in perfect collimation. Alright, believe me, they will be misaligned, guaranteed. I've not come across anything that's in perfect alignment. These will be the first things you need to invest in before you buy anything, okay? Without these optical devices, if you don't have your mirrors adjusted properly, you will not see much out of it. Your views will be absolutely horrendous. They'll be blurred, they'll be out of alignment, you'll get weird artifacts in the images as you look at an object. They won't be sharp. These are a must. These are the best upgrade for any Dobsonian telescope or any Newtonian telescope. So when you get a Dob, get yourself a Lazer Collimator or Cheshire Eyepiece. These are the best tools that you need. These are a must. And again, I have done a few videos out there. Check my channel out. There are so many links described at the top that I actually used these devices for aligning a Newtonian telescope. But these are the #1 accessory that you must invest. You must invest, without a doubt. On this telescope, don't get me wrong, the 50mm Finderscope is good. However, I don't particularly like it. Yes, it's a straight through variety. As you scan the sky, you have to align the Finderscope to the main tube. Personally, I don't like it. I find it very frustrating to use. Now, I'll be honest with you guys and girls, this will help you locate faint targets. Now, I'm not going to disregard the Finderscope, but I feel that the best accessory for a point-to guiding system is this. Now, this is a Telrad finder. Alright, this is basically, it sets a red reticle onto a sheet of glass and you look through it. Okay, you literally look through your target. And personally, the Telrad should be the next accessory. This will be easier to point towards targets with no modification, with much wider field of view, and you'll be able to point the telescope effortlessly. So easy, and it's so simple. As you can see there, I've already got the bracket stuck on, and it basically you just put the Telrad on there like so. It's that simple, and you just clamp it on there. There you go. It's even got a dew shield as well to stop the glass from fogging up. This is optional. You don't have to invest in one of those. But a Telrad finder is the best upgrade because it makes locating targets easier, and you can just look at your star chart, find the stars you want to view, and use the Telrad to align to star hop. Star hopping is a technique that you can use to find your targets that way. Using your Star Atlas or an app, find the targets in the night sky, looking through the Telrad, matching the stars, and star hop to find your deep sky objects. Personally, Telrad I feel is better than the straight through Finderscope. And it's so easy, it really is. It's so easy. You do have to align it. There are 3 screws on the Telrad that you need to do. You still have to line it up to the main tube. But once it's aligned up, it's beautiful. It's the best thing ever. It really is. However, there are times where even the Telrad has its limitations. Because it has no magnification, sometimes when you want to find a faint fuzzy or faint galaxy or nebula, the Telrad will not show that properly. The Telrad's good for like locating your nearest stars when you star hop. However, you cannot be a 50mm Finderscope. Now, this is where you need to upgrade to a 50mm, and personally this is the right angle prism Finderscope. This, because it's got a right hand edge, this is so easy. You just replace the standard Skywatcher straight through Finderscope and then swap it out for the right angle. And like you say, now the one thing I like about this is it has a right angle eyepiece, so as I'm looking through the target like so, I can look through, and it's really good if I'm looking at a target in the night sky and it's quite high up like so. As you can see there, I can look through the eyepiece of this right angle prism on the Finderscope and look at a target. And the thing what I like about this Finderscope is because the added 10 magnification, you'll be able to see some deep sky objects. So yes, I am not going to totally, as you can see there, I'm not going to totally disregard the Finderscope, because the Finderscope is very useful when you want to look for faint fuzzies. Once you get it in target, it should be aligned to your main tube. So we've taken the main telescope off and we're going to sort out this horrible bind. Now, as I've shown you before, this nut is very slack, and as you can see, it's that stiff that I'm actually moving the legs, right, and that's unacceptable. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the base using the issue tools. Use the bigger of the two, all right, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to put a spanner on this side like so, and then the spanner on the bottom. Okay, so you can move the mount, the actual base, and what we're going to do is just going to loosen this off. So that removes the bolts and the two components, the two washers and the nut. You can take that part out. So we're going to grab the base here, and as you can see, we've got loads of wear on these Teflon pads, and it's not a great design. So what I've got from Telescope Service is this. This is the upgrade base for the Skywatcher mounts. Now this is a bearing, alright, it's a large roller bearing system. Now this roller bearing system comprises of two steel spacers, and then you've got a plastic with needle roller bearings, okay, and they rest on there like so. You remove the Teflon ring itself and you've got the actual bearing. So as you can see there, you've got two spacers and they sandwich in between there. Now this base cost me €58. Again, it is quite expensive, but €58 works out around about £40, maybe so, but I don't know what the exchange rate is. But believe it or not, Telescope Service seems to be the only one that I can find that does this bottom base upgrade. Now, if Skywatcher, I know with the Skywatcher flex tube design, they already have this component. I have no idea why that Skywatcher on the Classic don't do this. Alright, it's a really good upgrade, and for sake of €58 for this upgrade, I think it will transform the base so much better. Now, you can install the base, the bearing on its own, but personally I believe that a bit of lubrication won't go amiss. Now, you don't need expensive exotic mount grease or whatever, but you can use some basic silicone grease. Now, I've got some silicone grease, the links are below. Alright, and this is a food grade grease. This is safe for all plastics and all types of surfaces. Now, this is just a it's got a low, it can resist up to minus 40 degrees, right up to 160 degrees. Now, because we're not using high speeds, alright, you can get away with using basic silicone grease, and this is quite easy. You get a tub of this grease, again the links are below, and it's very easy. Alright, it's very easy to assemble. So you just grab your bit of grease like so, and you can just put a bit of grease along each of the needle bearings. Alright, that's all you need to do. Okay, now this grease is safe for plastics. It's not going to deter the plastic. That's why I got the silicone grease, because silicone grease is very good for, it's very good for plastic. Alright, so it's not going to degrade the plastic. Alright, so you just smear bits of the grease along each bearing. Now, the reasons why I'm putting grease is, one, metal contact. It's going, with this grease, it's going to avoid all the metal parts from wearing out. And believe me, when you put a lot of weight on there, you are going to wear those out, alright, those components. So it just takes a bit of grease, like so, and just lubricate each bearing, alright, just each bearing. You don't need a lot of grease, you just smear it along. It's a good idea to put a bit of grease around this part as well. Alright, around the inside as well. And you can put a bit of grease along each of the splines. Right, you just only need a small amount, right? You don't need too much. You just put a thin smear on each of the legs, like so. You then flip it round and do the same procedure. Again, each needle part. But then what you got there is now a good layer of grease. Again, lay the bearing flat and then align the holes on like so. You then place the bearing, another spacer. So what you have here, you have a metal bearing at the bottom, you have the main roller bearing system, and then you put the metal base on top of that. That is it. You can then grease up the silicone grease along the plastic spacer like so. So, as you can see here, I have drilled using a 13.5mm drill bit. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to put this spacer through. So, as you can see here, what I've done then, alternatively, I've just used a round file and just carefully file along the edge like so. Now I can push in the spacer. Okay, so it's a tight fit. As you can see now, I can get the spacer in there. So I might need to just remove a little bit more, but I can now get the spacer through there. But you don't want too much free play. Okay, so you want that spindle to be nice and tight. Okay, so if you haven't got the right size drill bit, get yourself a round file like this and just file the edges bit by bit, and then just recheck the diameter. It's crude, I know, but as you're doing that, what I found is to hold two plates together while you're doing that. Okay, so you're gonna get nice and centered. So carefully file along there to then get the spacer to fit perfectly. Okay, so as you can see there, it is easily done, but it will work. So after a bit of filing, your spacer should fit through there nice and flush. Okay, this is a bit tight, but end of the day I don't want it too tight, right? I literally just filed off probably about 1 mil, if that, but it doesn't take long to place the bushing like so. So as you can see there, it fits nice all the way through like so. Again, top tip is put the two plates together while you're doing this, so that surface is now mated. You then wipe off any metal filings, keeping it relatively clean, because don't forget this is a bearing race, so you don't want any metal fragments getting in there and wearing your components out. So after you grease your bearing, as you see, only a film of grease will do. Okay, like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to place the bearing on top, like so. Get it aligned to the main hole. You then get the other plate, like so, and put that on the top, like so. You then get your bush, grease that bush, and then slot it through like so. Okay. Now you don't need this spacer, okay? Because this spacer was the main bearing for the main housing, so you do not need to place this spacer. You can put a bit of silicone along the Teflon pads if you wish. We're going to leave those on because they'll help also with the movement. You then grab the top base like so and place over the top through there. Okay, so we're on there now, so the space is through. You then get your bolt, get a bit of silicone grease around the bottom base, so put a bit of grease there, okay, just in between so that it doesn't wear out the bush. You then grab the bolt and you shove it through the bottom. So it's now up on there. So you then get the other washer on here, place it on there, and then you grab your nut like so. So you hold one tool here like so, and then you just tighten her up. Like so. You just don't want it too tight, because you just need to back it off. So you want a bit of free play, but you don't want too much free play. And as you can see here, now we tighten it a little bit, right? Just check again, alright, and there's no free play. So you just want to nip it up and back it off. Sometimes you need to just wiggle the base, alright? See if you've got any movement in between. So any movement in between the gap. But as you can see there, it's a lot more, it rotates a lot freely now. So to eliminate this annoying stud that keeps hitting the base on the Dob, okay, so what you can do is get yourself some like Velcro, like a Velcro pad. I've got a Velcro pad here, and this is the like a soft side, right? This is not the hard plastic. Just use the obviously the soft velvet size, and just peel that back, right, and you can then place it over, or you can put it on to the main tube. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to place it over the I mean, that should be enough, okay, to, like, so that's dampened it a little bit, alright, so that gives a bit of protection. Or if that's too much, or if that's not enough, you get the Velcro side, okay, the main plastic side, you peel that back, and you can get some soft sponge. So here's the soft sponge, right, this is really soft, and you stick the Velcro on there. Okay, so you stick that on there, so you've got a nice little plastic part there, and then you stick that onto this part. Okay, so you can remove this, so then when you tilt the telescope main tube, this will go and protect the main tube, so it's not going to scratch it. It may affect the angle, alright, on the main tube, but that just depends. Alright, but for us aware that this is now almost 90 degrees, but you can take it off. That's what I like about this mod. You can take this off, not a problem. Alright, but it needs to be a very soft sponge. It can be anything. You could use a kitchen sponge, alright, and cut that down, alright, and just put a bit of Velcro. So the next mod you can do is we're going to replace these horrible Allen key bolts for the secondary mirror. Now, as you can see there, it's adequate, but I don't like using tools, alright, because if you're doing the collimation, you can drop this tool down into the primary mirror and you're going to damage the coatings on the main mirror. So for sake of €9, maybe €10 for a set of these, I've got these thumb knobs from Telescope Service. Now these are 35mm long and the M4 thread. Now these threads are designed to fit onto the Skywatcher. They may fit other brands as well, but these 35mm thumb screws will do the job. Now you can grease them up with a bit of the silicone grease at the ends, alright, just to reduce wear. You don't need to, alright, but it's just a bit of preventive measure, alright, but you only need a thin smear of grease. It's literally on the little ends here, alright, but nowhere else. All right, you don't want any grease anywhere in there. Right, make sure that your telescope is horizontal. All right, because if you have it vertical and you do this job, then you're gonna, if you make a mistake, you're going to drop the Allen key into the primary mirror. So keep the tube horizontal, and what we're going to do is we're going to remove one of those screws. Now when you slacken the alignment, when you slacken these screws, you will lose collimation. So you're going to have to use your Lazer Collimator to readjust the secondary mirror and primary mirror. As you can see there, I did this on purpose. As you see there, I've just dropped that Allen key, and because it's in the horizontal position, this slide in there. If it was vertical, this will come crashing in. So that's the reason why I'm replacing these. I don't like these screws at all. Alright, so we're just going to remove these studs like so. So there's one of the studs removed. We've just put a little bit of grease on the ends there. You don't have to put them on there, but you only need to put a small smear of it, right? You don't need too much. So then we're going to put the uprated foam screw in there and just work your way in there. Okay, that's in place. Now we're going to then remove the next one. So again, get the next screw and remove the next part, and then place the last screw. So now I've got all three collimation screws in place, and now I can do my alignment by hand, right? None of this Allen key wrench stuff, and obviously risk dropping that tool into the prime mirror. Alright, and that's why I like these awesome awesome knobs, because they do help collimation, and it makes collimation so much quicker. So that's an easy quick fix there. So then guys and girls, as you can see here, I'm going to do the major assembly on the optical tube. Now what you see here, I've kept the original box, and believe it or not, the original box makes a perfect little table. Now what I've done is I've put the telescope tube vertical wise, and because of that I can lock the friction screws onto the Dob base, and this telescope is resting onto that box. It's perfect height, it really is a perfect height, and what this allows me to do is able to take out the components separately, alright, whilst being mounted. I mean, this is a pretty good idea. I mean, I don't like things rolling about, particularly where you're handling optical mirrors. Alright, so use this tip, get the screws locked down, get the actual main scope set up on, resting on that box, and you should be good to go. So at the moment I can work quite safely with this setup. So like always, when you are doing any work on any optical tubes, just remove any Telrad finders or Finderscopes. Okay, so you don't want these in the way. Now as you can see here, like I did in my last video on flocking, it's a good idea to mark with some tape before you do any removal of the primary mirror. Just tape it across and then score with a sharp knife across this part here. Alright, this will be your marker, so when you remove the primary mirror you know exactly which side the mirror is facing. Personally, there's no real need to do it, but it helps massively because at least you know exactly how that goes back on. The other thing is to measure the circumference. Get yourself a tape measure like this and just measure all the way around. And as you can see here, we'll just measure all the way around, and as you can see here, what I'm looking at here, I've got a circumference of 91 centimeters there. So we're going to measure the overall length to the base, not at this end, but to this part here, like so, all the way across to the white part here. And at the moment we've got 105 centimeters, so 105 centimeters long. This will give you some rough dimensions on how much material you need for flocking. So I visited the website which is First Light Optics, and I got the flocking material. You need 3 rolls of this. These are exactly 1 meter long and 45 centimeters in width. Alright, this flocking material. Again, these cost around about £7.50 each, so just like under 23 quid. Order these from First Light Optics. This is really good flocking material, and you only need 3 rolls of these, right, to do the whole tube. So we're going to remove the spider on the secondary mirror. Use a set of good pliers, because these screws are tight. Okay, so if you can't use it, you can't undo them with your finger. Okay, but these are very tight. So there's 4 of these, and as you can see there, it's easy with a set of pliers. Once they're off, you can then remove them by hand. Okay, so remove each one. Now the trick is to hold the center of the spider, so hold it there. You're not touching the main mirror. You slacken one screw comes off, then slacken another screw. Okay, as long as you've got the grasp of the spider in the middle, okay, like so. See? All supported, all safe. So now I can remove the spider like so, tilt it, and then it should come off. Now if the spider doesn't come off, there you go. So take it off, and there's the secondary mirror. And there's the secondary mirror removed, nice and safe. You then want to remove the 6 screws. Get a decent screwdriver and just crack these off independently. You can just shows you how stable the mount is to hold this optical tube. What's probably a good idea is to slacken the bottom screws So now I've got 6 screws on top. So now the trick is to hold with one hand. As you take these screws off, you've got one hand supporting the primary mirror. Okay, this will not fall off. Take your time and you can't go wrong. Because I've got one hand supporting the mirror, I now grab, once I've loosened all the screws, I won't twist it, I just pull it out like so. Okay, try not to twist it. Okay, and just feed it out. Okay. Okay, don't twist it, just feed it out and then pull it out, and there you go. The primary is now removed. So now what you have is the primary mirror cell and the secondary mirror with its spider covered up and in a safe place. As you can see, I've just used polythene bags, right, just to cover up the optics. Okay, you may want to use a plastic container. If you've got one that size, put that in there as well, but something that's nice and secure and away from animals and children, you should be good to go. Right, so that's where you should protect your optics at all times. So now, with both mirrors removed, it is now safe to work on the tube without dropping anything. Alright, so the trick with this is you slacken off and take out the adjustment lock handles, and then you can then lift the tube over to the main box. Okay, so it gives you a bit of a workspace, alright, to play about with. So it's a really nice little handy little tip. As you see there, I've transferred the weight across and now I can work on the main tube itself. So now we're going to remove the focuser. Very easy to do. Phillips screwdriver, get a 7mm socket or spanner and just loosen the 4 screws. So loosen the 4 screws. Okay, just do it independently. What you probably find that the screwdriver doesn't fit very well through the focus wheel, because the focus wheel's in the way, but don't worry about that. Just loosen the screws first, like so. There should be a disassembly like that. So again, some screws get tight, some get loose. So okay. There's a lot of work involved with this, but it will pay off in the end. So then, once all the screws are removed, you just take the focuser tube, like so, and there you go. So then, we're going to remove the Finderscope bracket, and it's the same 7mm socket, and then screwdriver, and just remove them. It's only 2 screws and nuts. Okay. There will be a plate that will fall off, but don't worry. That's why the reason why we remove the optical mirrors. So there's the plate for that. And then you take the bracket clamp for the Finderscope, like so. So now we can rotate the main tube. The tube's quite light now, but again, using this box helps massively. We're going to remove the handle. We're going to use a 5mm Allen wrench that you get with your Skywatcher toolkit, and you're just going to remove this Allen bolt like so. Lefty loosey, righty tighty, remember that. So we're lefty loosey, and then the actual knob will be removed like so. So after you removed all of the bits, we've just got 4 more nuts and bolts to remove. Now these are the spindle housing. All right, these are the mountings that mount the main tube onto the Dobsonian cradle. Now you've got to remove these. As you can see, they're quite far in the tube, so it's probably easier to gain access through the bottom end, all right, through the primary mirror end. But as we zoom in, you can see what I'm talking about. So there's those screws there. All right, so you got 4 either side. So now we're going to remove these mountings, okay? And using number 1 or number 2 cross point screwdriver and a 10mm socket or spanner to remove the nut from the bottom. And all you do is grab your hand, okay, as you can see here, I'm going at the primary mirror end. I've got a hold of the nuts, and then we're just going to remove these parts. Now be careful not to rest onto the primary mirror, right? You do not want to be denting the telescope tube. So no resting on there, just no pressure on there. Just let the tools do the work, okay? So no resting on the main tube, because if you rest on it, you'll squash the tube. All right, you don't want to do that. So carefully remove each component, and then you can then remove one of the supports, okay, for the cradle. Again, rotate the tube round, okay, rotate it round. This is where the box is so handy, it really is, because the box will help you support the work. And again, same detail. Hold the main tube, do not rest on it, okay, because if you rest on it, you'll squash the main tube. So, same detail, and then prise it up, and there you go. Both mounts are now being removed. So as you can see here, you've got these holes, right, that are supporting the main tube. Now at the moment, you can see, clearly state how Skywatcher have designed this, alright? It's quite simple and it is effective. However, these holes, I think, could do with at least be moved a good inch or maybe 2 inches forward, okay? Now, if you match one of those supports, you can do a distance of a good 65, maybe 60mm across, upwards, okay? Unfortunately, I can't mark the positions with the cradles, or the holes are very small, okay? So even though when I can line it up like so, trying to mark those areas is quite difficult. So what I'm going to do is going to mark out at least a good 2 inches will be enough to give me some new markings for the holes. Now 2" might be a bit too much for some people, but I'm going to use mine for 2" because what will happen is you're going to make the bottom of your primary mirror heavy on one side, but when you put the components it will all counterbalance out. So I'm going to make mine around about 50mm or 2" from the holes, okay, like so. Warning, when you do this, once you drill these holes out, you're going to void the warranty of your telescope. Now, I'll be honest with you guys and girls, this telescope is brand new. However, I'm going to take the risk for you guys and girls. End of the day, this is going to help out a lot of people able to achieve this modification. It's very simple to do. All you need to do is just try and get the center point and just measure across each part, okay, from the center. Alright, so from here I'm just going to roughly mark out where I want to have it. So at the moment I'm going to have it to 50mm, so I'm going to put a mark there, and then from that marking, providing a center, okay, I'm just going to measure it up again roughly. So I'm going to measure it to 50 there. Okay, so as you can see there, we've got our markings. Use a longer rule, alright, like so, just to make sure like so. So yeah, as you can see there, I'm level there, and so then I can then start drilling these holes. What we're going to do is going to do the same on the other side. So I'm just going to, because with these holes, I've just found out before I started drilling these holes, I've just had to recheck using the housing, and I'm glad I have checked. As I locate the holes, alright, along, yes, my holes are level, okay, but the main problem is though, 50mm is too much, and as you can see there, I'm too much. So for the safe side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and just use, I'm just going to use 30mm instead of 50. So 50 is a bit too much, so I'm going to mark out my holes to 30 instead, because it's a bit too much. So again, same detail, measure the holes from the centre, right, and do it to 30 instead. Okay. Again, at least there's one thing, when I do these videos I highlight my mistakes. So I reckon 30 is enough. Again, with a straight edge, and just roughly check, see if I'm sort of level. Line it up like so, and there you go. As you can see now, I've got no holes exposed. So 30mm is what I'm going to do. 50mm is too much. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. As you can see now, we're going to drill these holes, alright, it's 30mm holes. Now, we're going to carefully drill it. We don't want to put too much pressure on this main tube, because if you put pressure on this drill, right, you're going to risk bending the optical tube. Okay, so you don't want to do that. So using the drill, you're going to carefully drill those holes. Okay, do not put pressure on. Okay, don't put pressure on. Let the drill do the work. Okay, just let it cut in. You see how easy it is, right, to be careful, or you can dent the tube, alright, so carefully make sure you just apply. You definitely need a good drill bit. Also here, the drill bit's pretty crap, so it's not much of a dent, but it's not perfect. But as you see there, take your time, alright, let the drill do the work, but use a better drill bit. Okay, the main problem with this tube is you can't put a countersunk part here, because if you do that you're going to squash that tube. So that's the disadvantage of this hollow tube. So you just got to rely on the drill bit, rely on a decent drill bit. This one here is just not too great, but remember, make sure your drill is not on hammer mode, alright, just normal mode. Okay, and just okay, so there we go, we've got our holes drilled. It just shows you that you just got to be careful. So remove the drill bit and we're going to check the diameter of those holes from the original Skywatchers. So from look at this, they've used a 6mm drill bit holes there. So they've used 6mm drills, holes on there. Well, before we start going on to the 6mm, we're just going to gradually work our way up. So I'm going to use a 4mm drill bit and just work the sizes up. Okay, so I'm using a 4mm drill. See how easy it is to grab the metal. So we're just using a 4mm drill. Just let the drill there you go. So that is a 4mm. We're now going to work our way up to 6mm. So we now work our way up to 6mm drill bit and just let the drill do the work. There you go. So now we've got those holes lined up, and then this is a good opportunity to get the cradle bracket, just check the fitment on the holes like so. Okay, and those holes have lined up perfect. So we've got those holes lined up. You do the same detail on the other side. Remember, the first drill point is quite hard, so use the drill, gradually put a bit of pressure, not too much pressure, because if you do that you're going to squash that tube. So work your way through the drill bit sizes start off with, if you've got a 1mm or 2mm drill bit, just work your way gradually once you get there, and then same detail, check both sides. Both holes line up now, and I can prove this to you guys and girls. As you can see now, if I put my screws on there, in fact the holes are a bit small, so what I'll do is I'll just make sure I make these holes just a tad bigger. And there we go. So here's a cradle. Line up our holes. There we go, that's one. Just check the other one. This one's slightly out, but we're just gonna use the screw to work it way in. And as you can see there, both screws now are lined up. So now we do the same detail on the other side. So as we see here, we have got 3 pieces of flocking, and I've cut them to size, and I've cut them to 89 centimeters long. It may be a bit too excessive, we don't know, but 89 centimeters. And then what I do is I've cut 44.5. as you can see, there's a cut point there, so I've cut these out. So I'm going to cut across to the midpoint, so there'll be 2 sections. So each of these sections will be 44.5 centimeters long. Okay, so then one side, and I'm going to have them in 2 halves. So 89 centimeters long, and then half it to 44.5. There may be excessive left, but I can always recut it, okay, down to size. As you can see here, it's the same technique what I'm doing with the 114mm Newtonian. And to start it off, I line up, I peel off the backing to leave like 2 centimeters of adhesive exposed, and I line it up along this line. Now I use this line to as my guide, so I can roll on the flocking. So if you've not seen that video from Get Flocked, please check it out. Because this is a bigger tube, this is exactly the same process that I'm going to use. Alright, so what I do is I peel back a bit and I just rub all the way down, right? And as I'm doing that, I just peel off the backing a little bit, and I just keep feeding this all the way down. Okay, as I'm doing it, I'm working it all the way in, all the way round, to create that one layer of flocking. So as you can see, the secret to this as well, is what I do is I peel back this part, right, leave about a good 2 centimeters like that, and then I line it up on there, same detail, rub it back and forth. That is the secret, okay, to put this flocking. So as you can see here, the technique is up and down like so, and then peel off a little bit like so. That's the secret. Okay, just make sure that the start here is level and just keep going. Now if you have to rotate the tube now and again, and just keep going down like so. As you can see, I am pressing out every ounce of air bubbles by doing this. Okay, so as you can see, I'm peeling back, working that flocking. Okay, as you can see, we're getting nice layer like so, peeling back, constantly applying the pressure. Then if you want to move the tube, you can do. This is why this box helps you guys and girls. If you keep the box, you can do this. And look at what I've got here. I mean, look, we've got a really nice layer. And again, keep peeling that back. Okay, keep going, working that flocking, keep working it. Now we're getting to the end part, so keep peeling it, keep working it in. Now, as we can see here, we've got a nice layer up. So now we've got the midsection put in, and as you can see, we are completely mated together. There's no dimples, no ridges, no cuts. Some people don't like to leave this beading over across, but to be honest with you, I use this as a guide, which helps me put the flocking nice and straight, and as you can see, it does help. Some people like to put a bit of flocking over the top, that's fine, but to be honest with you, this is more than adequate. I'm happy with this. Now you can get away with 2 sheets, so 2 rolls of the flocking you could get away with. And as you can see there, I've got pieces left that I've cut, and I could technically finish off the whole lot. So 2 more pieces of the excess, you can make that, cut it to size, right, to finish off the job. Alright, so you can finish off with any pieces of flocking you've got left. Unfortunately, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the spare flocking as it is, because I want the flocking to match all the way around. Okay, but it really is up to you. Don't forget, the mirror cell goes in for about a good 1 centimeters and a bit. Okay, it goes in there because it pushes into the main tube. So remember that tube, you can't have flocking going past this point. So ideally is measure the length you want, is get the tape measure and measure up how much you want to leave exposed. So at the moment I can get away with another 12 centimeters and I should be okay. So 12 centimeters, I should be able to get away with. In fact, no, it's actually cutting it close. So what I'll do is I'll cut it to 11 centimeters. So gives me a bit of play. So yeah, 11 centimeters is probably ideal to finish off the job. So I'm going to cut a piece of that and put it back on. This should be the easiest part, because the middle part was quite difficult. You got to literally squeeze through that tube. Believe me, it takes some doing. But as you can see there, if it's done properly, you can see straight away. You can't really grumble at that. In fact, the flock is better than the 140mm I've done, and I'm really impressed with it. So I'm gonna cut that strip around at same detail, leaving that gap so that I can push the mirror cell in. So 11 centimeters should be okay. As you can see, if you do it right and you take your time, you're going to have flocking like this. I'll put the two sections there, leaving me at least 1.5 centimeters, maybe 2 centimeters there, but that's not to worry. As you see there, we've done a really decent job on the flocking, and I must admit, spot on, absolutely spot on. So now we've pierced all the holes, okay? So we've pierced the ones we've marked along even the focus tube, along the spider. Everything is all cut up now. So now we can now put our mounting brackets, our mountings for the cradle. Okay, so we're going to put that in place. So we're putting the cradles back in. Put the mountings like so. So with this, line them up to the holes. Now some people like to paint these nuts and washers, but to be honest with you, there's no real need to, because they've already painted. So they've got some anti-reflective coating on there. Then we get the 10mm socket, and then just tighten it up bit by bit. I'm just going to flip it round to put the other cradle mount. Just nip them up first, and then so now before we put any optics, get a roll on and just get rid of the remaining dust and lint. Alright, before we put the secondary mirror. Okay, so as you can see there, we're just getting rid of loads of crap that we don't want onto our optics. Okay, so just roll it in there. Okay, just get rid of all of the dust and lint on there. Okay. See how much crap I'm getting off there, as you can see. Yes, you do get a bit of black felting in there, but don't worry about that. So before you put your secondary mirror, put the back plate in, like so, and then get your Finderscope shoe in place as well. So get that in there. And then put the plate in like so. Then get your nut, place the nut in there. It's out of the way first before you put the focuser and the secondary mirror. So it's once it's in, get your 7mm socket or spanner and cross point screwdriver, and then just tighten up. Tighten up the other side. With this bracket underneath, it will help to secure the flocking as well, so makes it much more secure. Like so. Don't over tighten it, just need to just enough. And there we go, that's nice and tight, that. So we now place our secondary mirror. Okay, take off the bag which was protecting the optics. Again, it goes a certain way. It goes, the flat will always face the eyepiece holder. So you need to just line this up first. Again, take your time. Alright, got all the time in the world. You just want to level this up. It will go in. So here we go, we've got it level. So the trick is to get one of the nuts in place. Alright, just line up one and then line up another. So you get another bolt here, again, line that up. Okay, and then we'll line up another one. Okay, and then we've got a last one here. Okay, what you probably find, you might need to slacken one and then tighten the other. Okay, slacken one, tighten the other. But it will go in there. Like so. Now you'll have to collimate this spider to make sure that the spider is nice and central. So you'll have to collimate the spider, okay, to keep it in line with the primary mirror. So don't worry about the misalignment. Just get the secondary mirror in there, like so, and then we can always do collimation afterwards. Okay, so it's in place now. You can now put the handle if you wish. Now here's a good opportunity to do that. Alright, so we'll put the handle in. So put the Allen key stud, then the washer, and then the nut. Okay, so get the Allen key, okay, and just nip it up. Alright, so that's nipped up, that's fine. So we now got the second mirror in place. Good opportunity now is to do a quick inspection of the primary mirror. Okay, there's a bit of dust. Check the security of the brackets. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just do a quick blow brush just to get all the remaining dust out. Okay, and then once you're happy where the markings are, line it up like so. Okay, and we're just going to push in the primary mirror like so. Now keep hold of it. This will go in. If it doesn't go in, just pull it back and then just keep playing about with it. If not, just keep playing about it. If not, go back. Okay, we're in. So you've got to play about with it. Okay, so we've lined it up on there. Okay, and you can just see now the tube is slightly squashed. So sometimes you just got to fiddle around with it, but take your time. Alright, don't rush. Once it's in there, if the holes don't line up, you can slightly twist it. Okay, as long as you're in line where you've marked the tube, and just put the screws in place. Okay, but it took a while to get in, but we got there in the end. Again, if you're struggling, get someone to hold the tube, but make sure you don't squash the tube, okay? Because you don't want to dent the tube, because if you're over the tube, it's going to cause you some massive dramas. Again, if you can't line up one hole, try another one. So we've got 3 screws holding the primary mirror. You can twist it a little bit, like so, and then try again. Okay, so we've got one, so we've got 4 now, 4 holes. It's probably good to just nip them up slightly. Okay. So now we're just going to rotate the tube. Okay, to line up the rest of the other holes. Just got to make sure that the mirror cell is nice and flush onto the main tube, because that will affect collimation. But you're going to do collimation anyway. Okay, and twist the tube again to put in the last hole, making sure that the mirror cell is nice and flush. Okay, so now you just do opposite to opposite. Like so, then like so, like so. So yeah, and just check each one nipped up. Don't need to be over tight. You don't want to strip the heads. Okay, these are not great. Yeah, they're not great screws, but they are strong enough to hold that mirror cell. Okay, so that is the primary mirror back in safely. We've got the secondary mirror. So now what I've done to the focuser is, with the existing focuser, I have put flock in where I can flock the draw tube, and as you can see, there are lines here that are exposed, which is where the bearings are acting on. Okay, so there are 2 parts where they can't be flocked. Also at the bottom there is a gap there for where the spindle goes along. So here where I flocked it all the way around the tube, but obviously away from the friction bearings and spindle. So now I can operate the focus tube, okay, without any of the flocking getting caught up in the mechanism. So it takes a few minutes to do. You'll have to cut it in place so it mates in there. I can't really give you exact sizes of how it's made, but you'll just have to cut around bits of the waste material. But this is the one way you can maximize some of the flocking and utilize to improve on the focuser with this unique mod. It only takes seconds to do, alright, and for sake of the extra little bit of time, okay, it really goes a long way. So as you can see there, we've got a flocked focuser tube to reduce as much of the glare as possible. So now we'll be placing the focuser back onto the main tube. Now luckily we've got enough aperture so we can actually place the focuser in there. However, if you've got a telescope that hasn't got enough of an aperture, you might have to take the secondary mirror off. So I'm just going to line up one of the screws first, okay, and then get the nut. As you can see, the tube is mounted horizontal, okay. Very crucial that you mount it horizontal so you don't drop anything into the main tube itself and hitting the primary mirror. So put the other bolt in again, just work that way in, okay, try not to force anything, like so. Okay, put the third one in. And then put the last one in. Like you say, carefully don't touch the secondary mirror while you're doing this. Okay, and then get your 7mm socket and just tighten up. Okay, so get your screwdriver and just tighten up each bit by bit. Okay, check the next one. Okay, and the next one. Okay, so I'm going to use the socket now to just put the initial torque in. Okay, like so. Don't need to be over tight, but just tight enough. Again, just carefully. Nip these up. Okay, that's tight. And then last one. There you go. So as you can see, we've got a very dark tube now. The focus has been obviously darkened as well, and as you can see there, it's going to give us some really fantastic contrasting views. So it's definitely worth doing this modification. It's took out a lot of glare and stray light, and I'm really happy with the results. So overall, for sake of a good 2 hours work, it does pay off in the end to do this modification. And for sake of 2, maybe 3 rolls of flocking, it's definitely worth that money. So straight away, a massive improvement over the standard, and I should get some really good sharp views from this. The next modification I thought of is these plastic brushes. Now they're okay if they're greased, they're not too bad, but they're not the best. So one thing I found is if we replace those, some people use Teflon pads, alright, Teflon barrels, which are okay, but to be honest with you, these they're adequate, but they're not brilliant. So what we're going to do is just going to remove these out, like so. I mean, they're okay, but they're not the best. But again, they can still be used, alright? So I'll push that one out. Now what I'm going to do to these rollers is I'm actually going to, I've got a countersunk stainless steel M6, which is 40mm long threaded Allen bolt. Okay, I've got this Allen bolt. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread this through using, I've got a finishing washer which fits M6 thread, and I'm going to place the finishing washer through here, like so. You're then going to get a M6 washer, like so. So with that, I'm going to put the washer here, like so. With that, I have got some roller bearings. These are to fit a metric 6. These are to fit a metric 6 shaft. These are 90mm in diameter, and they are 6mm thick bearings. You'll need 2 of these, okay, and they place over the bolt. Then you get a nylon lock nut, like so, and then you're just going to tighten these up. Now on these are a bit big. I have to nylon knock the threads on there, but it's not perfect. So using a 6mm wrench and 10mm spanner, okay, I can tighten these up. Okay, they're just on there. They're not perfect, but they're just on there. Okay, so the nylon knock will stop the system from coming apart. Alright, that's it. That's well clamped in there. As you can see there, we've uprated these with some uprated bearings. We're going to do the same on the other side as well. Alright, so the same detail on the other side as well. So same arrangement, and move to the next step. So with the uprated bearings here, alright, what I've done alternatively is I have taped using 15mm PVC electrician's tape, okay, and all I did is just wrapped around the bearings like so, so that it gives out a plastic coating. Now the reasons why I've done this, you don't have to do this, but all I want is I don't want a metal to plastic contact, because what will wear out more on the cradle housing on the main tube is, because that's plastic, these are metal. So what this thin layer of PVC, what that will do, will help give a plastic coating over there, so that it's literally plastic on plastic rather than metal on plastic. So again, metal does not wear very quick compared to plastic. Plastic will wear very quickly if it's in contact with the metal. So I've done it on both sides, okay? So as you can see there, I've done on that side, and as you can see, if we just turn the, and then I've done it on this side as well. Alright, just a thin layer. Alright, you don't need to put too much wrappings. I've just done 1 or 2 windings like so, and then cut it off. It does not need to be spot on. You just don't want too much of a thick layer. You just need a thin layer. And again, when you're applying the tape, wrap the tape round, just clean off the bearing sides so there's no film or grease. Alright, you just use a rag or a clean cloth and just clean them up first, and then wrap the tape round. It's a simple and effective way to do it, and what that does is it will protect, stops these bearings from digging into the plastic cradle. So as we place the tube, like so, they'll sit on there, and as you can see there, you can see just there, plastic on plastic, and it's still free to rotate, as you can see, and it just gives a bit of protection and just increased reliability. But it's up to you guys and girls. I always say prevention is better than cure. At the moment, it's still bottom heavy, but it's very responsive. So those bearings have helped massively. So we're going to put the 2-inch eyepiece in, like so. So yeah, it's still top heavy, but if we just tighten up the clutch, all right, perfect. So as you can see here, it's still bottom heavy, but the bearings on the bottom, the bearings on the up and down motion are a lot more responsive. So obviously the friction plate has helped a bit, but I must admit it's a lot more responsive on the tilt axis now. So you can change the up and down motion bearings if you want, but again, this still needs to, as you can see there, with the tension, I'm not over tightening the tension, it's still usable. Yeah, like I say, it's a lot better. Wow, it's a lot better. So needs to be, like I say, it's still top heavy on this bottom piece, so maybe there's too much less friction, so a bit of friction on the altitude. Once you get it adjusted right, yeah, as you can see here, so you're slacking it off, but if you just tighten it just a bit, there we go. Oh yeah, yeah. So if you're slacking it off, yeah, still top heavy. So even when I've moved it 30mm up, there's still something I still need to do. So like always, the bearings, the roller bearings have helped massively on the motion of the up and down. The up and down motion is a lot better, but there's still something that I can still do with. So the next modification I'm going to take is this. Now this is a 5-volt USB powered cooling fan. Again, please check out the link below. Alright, the link to the description of this fan you can easily obtain for about £14. And the one thing I like about this fan, it comes with different sets of speeds, low, medium and high. So what I do like about this fan, it has variable speeds and you can power off any unit with a, say like a little small lithium battery charger like this. This is a portable 5-volt charger, okay, lithium battery. You just plug it in there and then switch on the power, and as you can see we've got a low setting, high setting, and then all the way up to the maximum speed. Okay, so there's, again, here on this fan, figure out which side is blowing the cool side. So again, just use your hand and figure out where is the air getting blown from. So the air gets sucked in here and then blows out here. As you can see here, I can feel this side, and a good indication, luckily we've got the label to illustrate that this is the air which is getting blown out. So we switch her off, disconnect it from the battery, and what we're going to do first is remove the safety guard off using a cross Phillips screwdriver and just loosen the guard off. Okay, to remove those screws, alright, to expose the actual fan blades. So we know this is the air getting blown out. So then what we're going to do is we're going to remove these screws. So these screws remove, and to unleash the other guard. So now we're at the mirror cell side, and as you notice there are some M4 screws. Alright, there's 4 of those, and you're going to need 4 metric 4 countersunk screws. Doesn't matter what screws or bolts you use, but these screws are 35mm long. You can get away with 30mm long, but 35 is just enough. Anything longer will be too much. So if you have got longer ones, you can always cut them down. And then grab your fan with the guard. Take note where the cold air side is aiming. So this is the cold air side, hence the label. We then grab a screw, thread it through one of the holes like so, and then you're going to thread it onto the back of the mirror cell like so. So just go by each one. Like so. You don't need to have them over tight, you just have them nipped up. Okay. Like so. Right, so it's just enough to secure the fan onto the base. Like so. So there you go. You have now got a cooling fan installed with that. And with that cooling fan, using your USB, connect it up, plug on the power, and then activate the switch, and then you've got a cooling fan for your primary mirror. Now the advantage of using the cooling fan onto a primary mirror is it speeds up the cooling process of the mirror. So when you take out this telescope out from a warm room into a cold environment, what that does is it will help to firmly cool the primary mirror quicker. Now usually bigger the primary mirror, the more time it needs to cool down. And usually just the low setting will be enough to speed up the cooling process of that mirror. When you cool down the mirror, what that does is it will stabilize the mirror, and what it does, it will provide a much sharper image. You'll get less shimmering. Basically the cold or hot trapped air that's inside the tube, this fan will push out all the warm air inside that tube. It will cool down the mirror, and it will increase the sharpness of your views, and it will appear less shimmery. Okay, the cooling process is very crucial when you're cooling down a Newtonian mirror. Usually with a 10-inch mirror like this will take around about 30 to 45 minutes to cool down. With this cooling modification, it will cool down the primary mirror probably half the time. So probably 15, maybe 10 minutes, depending on the speed. Again, if you want to cool it down quicker, you can always max it out like so at 2,700 RPMs, I believe. Alright, will be enough to get this mirror stabilized to maximize your view. Now this is a good thing about this setup, is the cable is the ideal length, and that's why I picked this fan. It's a perfect ideal length. It's all secure and sealed. It's one whole unit. So the control box is there, and the good thing is with the battery, lithium battery, you can always place it at the back like so, out the way. And as you can see there, the cable is long enough so that the telescope, even its horizontal position, you can see straight away it's a perfect length for this setup. And that's why I got this fan. Alright, so that's something else to share. So then, guys and girls, what I want to show you, the main problem with this telescope is, even though it's a solid tube, it still allows a certain amount of light. Now, as you can see here, I put a bright LED torch shining at the back of the primary mirror. And what's that going to do is, if we take a look back round, even though we have flocked the tube, if we take a look, can you see? Look at that. At the back of the primary mirror cell, you've got stray light coming from the tube where the primary mirror is. And as you can see there, this stray light could actually affect your views. Okay, you'll start getting some weird artifacts, and with this it could determine whether you could see properly on deep sky objects. So it's a bit of a design flaw. There are several ways you can do it, but there's one easy way that I found which is pretty good. And I must admit, even with the modification that flocked has helped darken the tube, there's still stray light that's entering the tube. and it's coming from down from the primary mirror, which is unacceptable. So what I found, the best solution is I've got myself this AstroZap. It's like a dust cover. I've got this from First Light Optics, and this one is around about 15 to about 20 pounds at the most, if that. I'm sure it's about 15, I'm not quite sure, but I got this from First Light Optics. There is Telescope Service that sells these as well, but First Light Optics is the only one in the UK that sells them. And what I found, the easiest solution is to cover the back like so. There with me. Let's cover the back. And there you go. So we'll take a closer look, and we'll have a look, see what we've got. And voila, look at that. So as you can see there, the cover not only acts like a dust cover, it acts like a very sufficient stray light blocker. So it blocks all that stray light, and what's that going to do? It's going to help improve the contrast and help you see more of the faint fuzzies in the night sky. So as you can see there, just a simple modification. And don't forget, this LED light is very bright and such an effective mod to do. There are alternatives. You can make a cardboard jig to cover it up, but you've got to find ways of sticking it. For me, the good thing about this setup is it's not going to interfere with the cooling, so the fan can still suck the air from the outside into the main tube to cool down the thermal mirror. And the good thing is you can always remove this when you want to do some collimation. So you can go at the back, do your collimation like so, and then put the cover back on. So it's such a simple trick to do. You can use like one of those hair caps. They can also work, but trouble is though, with those you're limited to a certain amount of size. But this lens cap cloth does the job. So again, check out First Light Optics. You can buy this for not much money. You can get from 6 to 8, 10, 12, I believe up to 16 inch of aperture. So as you can see here, the telescope is balanced. So with the fan, with the cover, we did the modification here, and as you can see, we are reasonably balanced. In fact, we're slightly top heavy. We've got the eyepiece as well, the heaviest eyepiece, and this is like really slack. So as you can see, I've just tightened up the friction, and we are still bottom heavy, but that's not to worry. Okay, you can still balance the main tube. You can get these counterweights that's got magnetic stuff that can counterbalance the tube properly. But as you can see there, we're bottom heavy. But what I found is I found a really good product from Orion, and this is the counterweight for Dobsonian telescopes, and it's got a anti-marking surface, and it's got a 50-pound magnetic weight. This weight consists of around £3, which is probably around about almost 1.5 kilos, I believe. And what this can do is you can slide this counterweight, alright, and you can slide it up and down the main tube like so, and it won't mark the main tube, okay? So with this counterweight, I can balance the main telescope, and as you can see, because we're bottom heavy, I'm using this counterweight, and as you can see, this weight is, because it's counterbalanced against that, and I'm balanced to a certain point. Okay, so you have to like get the right kind of balance you need, okay, to do this. Alright, and as you can see, you just take a bit of time, like so, and there we go. We are a bit more. Again, it takes a bit of time to get it right. So there you go, we're balanced there. So all you do is just slide this £3 weight up and down to get your balance. Alright, and it really is a simple mod. Alright, and again, you can tighten the clutch slightly to get a bit more friction, and there we go. We are balanced properly. So it's a really effective mod. It is expensive. It's around £47, which I feel is a bit too pricey. You can get two models of this. You can get the £1 one or the £3 one. For this type of scope, if you haven't done this modification, then go for the £3. I feel that the £1 counterweight should be enough, to be honest with you. I should have got the £1 one, but again, the £1 one was around about £24. This was around about £47. But it just depends on your setup. But this is the thing about this design, the 250p is very top heavy. So even I've done the slight modification here, I've balanced it out properly now, and now I've got this counterweight, and now it's massively helped the balancing, okay, quite well. And as you can see, it's a lot better now. But again, this will all vary if you're using heavy eyepieces. So I'm using the Explorer Scienfitic 2-inch 14mm 100 degree field of view eyepiece there, and that is around about 1 kilogram. Don't forget, I'm using the 50mm guide scope. Then I got the Telrad, so I've got a lot of weight on one side. So by either, you've got two choices. You can do this modification where I move the actual center point on the main tube, or you can alternatively, if you don't want to drill into the tube, you can always invest on the counterweight, and that should also balance out your balance problems. So this is it, guys and girls, we're ready to go. We've super tuned our 250p Dobsonian, so there's still something I need to do, but like always, I've got the Finderscope aligned, I've got the Telrad aligned, I've done the Collimation on the Dobsonian telescope, and I've allowed the telescope to cool down as well for a good 10 minutes. Usually it should give it a good 30, maybe an hour if possible. With the cooling modification, that fan will cool down that mirror a lot quicker, so there's no need to wait for 30 minutes or an hour to let it cool down. It takes about 10 minutes and off you're away. Okay, it really does help massively. Once you've got the Collimation, once you've got that thing, you can then begin star hopping, checking the night sky, use a map and enjoy the night sky. And this is what I'm really excited about. Don't get me wrong, I do like astrophotography, but there's some times where, to be honest with you guys and girls, visual astronomy is sometimes I always like to go back on, because I do miss seeing the faint fuzzies by my own eyes. My own eyes can reveal a lot of detail. As soon as I switch off that light, there'll be no light pollution around me. Okay, I'll be sticking to a good old red torch, alright, to conserve my night vision. Night vision is crucial. If you want to see some fantastic sightings of deep sky objects, you've got to get your eyes adapted. So allowing your eyes to adapt for a good 20, maybe 30 minutes, you get to see a lot more. So make sure you've got no surrounding light pollution around you. Okay, it's very crucial. You want to use some light pollution filters. Feel free to use those light pollution filters. They will help you darken the background, contrast, and reveal more detail. Alright, so light pollution filters will work with this Dobsonian and start to see some amazing objects in our universe. So let's do this. Guys and girls, we've got the Dob focused using my Sony A6400, right, connected up to the Dobsonian, and as you can see, using the low profile T-ring, it focuses on the Orion Nebula. Now believe it or not, I'm actually taking a video. Okay, so I've got a video shot of Orion Nebula. As you see there, we can just see the elements. Okay, so just bear with me because it's a bit hard to try and maneuver two cameras. Here we go. Yeah, we've got the center core. You can even see the trapezium as well. Let me just switch off the glare so you can see. And as you can see there, we've got a really good detail there. And I'm at 16,000 ISO at 1/4. And this is actually a video I'm going to take. And as you can see, it just shows you that even using a shot of the camera, you can actually take a video of this. So really impressive, without a doubt. I'm really impressed with this so far, and you can see I even got a hint of colour even in this video which is definitely saying something. So I'm really impressed so far with the results. So as you can see there, we've got the Orion Nebula. You can see the trapezium in there, the center core, some of the dark areas as well, and this is quite amazing. I'm only at ISO 16,000 on the Sony, and the exposure is 1/4, and I'm getting this amount of detail. This is really impressive. So really look at that. I mean, to get this level of detail through this camera is something else, and it just shows you the optics through this Dobsonian really are impressive. The modifications I've done makes me able to track the object by hand very smoothly, and I'm just nudging it just by my hand, right, to keep track of it, because like always the Dobsonian does not track. But to see this level of detail is really impressive stuff. This is really good. I mean, I must admit, absolutely amazing. To get this is something else, it really is. This is awesome, absolutely awesome. So, got the hint of redness in there, nebulosity, some of the dark lanes. And if I try and up the exposure to, it will get noisier when I up it, so I up it to 32,000. As you see, we get a bit more detail, but the noise is unbelievably not very bearable. So if I knock it down to 20,000 ISO, yeah, this is impressive. Look at that, at 1/4 as well, in actually on the video. So there's a video recording of the nebula in all its glory. You can even see the M43 on the edge, a small nebula, and even the nebulosities is found through that as well. Really is impressive results. So far, with the modifications I've done, we've really done some good. We've done a great job of this. Well, guys and girls, what do you reckon? Absolutely fantastic. I must admit, what a brilliant night I had. The first light with the upgrades that I've done on this telescope has been just absolutely outstanding. And being able to not only just able to use the telescope with ease without any dramas. I've got a fantastic little setup. I've been able to even take, using my Sony camera, and even with the Sony camera you could see the detail on the Orion, on the Great Orion Nebula. And as you can see on that nebula, the amount of nebulosity, you could see the dark channels, the cloud structure, the center core, even the trapezium. Even on M43, the smaller nebula, you can just see the hint of nebulosity there through that camera in live view as well. What can you say? I mean, the light grasp on this 10-inch model is unbelievable. And even during that night, I've been able, with the use of the Telrad, has made it easy to point towards targets. I was able to find the Messier 97, which was the which is the Owl Nebula. I've also managed to sight M81 and M82, those two galaxies near the Plough. Even the Whirlpool Galaxy, which is Messier 51, I'm able to spot that galaxy with this telescope with ease. I then flew to some other targets like the firm favourite Messier 45, which is the Pleiades cluster. Again, able to pick out loads of stars in that region with this telescope. And then I flew to other targets as well. And I managed to go check out the Great Orion Nebula, M42 and M43. With ease, as you can see, even through the camera in just live video as well, is impressive results. You name it, I was scanning the sky. I even picked out, I did try to find another galaxy which is the Leo triplets. Unfortunately, it was a dewy night and it started to dew up. The Telrad eventually, it was very dewy, so even with the shield, protective shield on the Telrad, it started to dew up, and then I started, well, okay, I'll call it a night. But just a few targets in that night, just by star hopping and using some form of star chart, I was able to pick out a lot of night sky objects in there really, really well. The modifications I spent overall, I'll be honest with you guys and girls, it wasn't cheap. It wasn't actually cost effective, because I paid something in the region around £249 overall, which in a way I could have adopted to another 10-inch model, which is very similar spec, just a bit more refined for the same sort of price. But the idea of this video is to share, if you've got a similar telescope like this, the modifications are endless and you can always adapt to uprate your existing telescope setup, the Skywatcher, despite its flaws, right, I'll be honest with you guys and girls, the actual main tube is brilliant optically, but the base itself needs to be considered to be sort of improved. And there's other variants out there that are much better Dob base than the Skywatcher, and that's the biggest flaw I have to say about this telescope. Everything else about the optical glass, the actual views from this telescope are absolutely amazing, and they do wonderful models from the 150mm, the 6-inch, and the 8-inch model. For me, if I was on a limited budget, I think the best good all-rounder would probably be the 6-inch or 8-inch model of this classic Dobsonian. The modifications that help make the telescope very easy to use, and despite I had to go through a lot of work, I would say with the mods that I've done, I would say the best mods, what I feel are better, is definitely get the Dobsonian base upgrade, the bearing upgrade for this model. Definitely, that is definitely a must. The other modification is definitely the trusty Telrad. The 9x50 right angle is okay, but the Telrad is definitely a top-notch modification. The other one is get yourself the dust cover from First Light Optics. Fantastic upgrade, stops all the stray light from getting in. And the flocking, definitely, if you've got the time and you've got mechanical knowledge, or you know what you're doing with the optical mirror, if you're prepared to take out the primary mirror or secondary mirror, definitely do the flocking modification as well. It really does help with the views. Everything else, modification wise, are niceties. The cooling fan helps a bit. It does help in cooling, but it's not essential. The counterweight, if you've done the modification on the tube, you don't really need a counterweight as such, unless you start putting bigger eyepieces. Then the counterweight, magnetic counterweight, will be important. But everything else, the uprated bearings on the latitude, the altitude is okay, but it's not essential. The Teflon, the standard original parts from Skywatcher are just as good enough. But apart from the other stuff, that is about it. But personally, the best recommendation is definitely the Dob base. You need to upgrade the Dob base bearing, because that transforms that Dob base, makes it much more smoother, much more a joy to use. But everything else, feel free. You don't need to tune up. You don't have to super tune the whole telescope like I've done. The only things I could probably find to improve on the tube is maybe I could paint the outside of the primary mirror and the secondary mirror edge. Okay, you can get some matte black chalkboard paint, which you can paint over the sides. But personally, if you're going to use it for visual use, the flocking and the dust cap is just enough to stop all the stray light from entering the main tube. So again, feel free to do the super tune, alright, on your existing Dobsonian. If you've got this branded model, so what the hell, even though I spent a bit of money, I'm going to use the telescope more, because now I've got it to a standard where I can now set it up with ease and enjoy visual astronomy. And this is what I'm going to be using my telescope setup before, is just look at the night sky and enjoy. Whilst I'm imaging, I can use the 10-inch Dob It's a good size. Everyone says it might be a bit too big and cumbersome for some people. Personally, I think it's the biggest aperture that I feel is portable. It's on that limit. Any Dobsonians below that, that's fine, but as soon as you hit the 12 inch and the 14 and right up to 16, you name it, it's not portable whatsoever. It's very heavy to carry around and takes longer to set up. Here, carry the base, put it onto the horse standing, put the main tube on my way. And it's a good telescope. And as you can see, I managed to able to image Orion Nebula in real time with some great results, and the detail is absolutely amazing. So if you like watching my video, please hit the like button, and if you're new to this channel, again, please subscribe onto my channel. Also, please share this video out. It may give you other people some other ideas if they've got this telescope set up from Skywatcher. Again, they can undertake the project and maximize their performance on the telescope. And again, hit the notifications bell, because believe me, when the skies and the weather starts to clear up as it gets warmer, we're going into springtime, hopefully we're going to get some good clear skies. So thanks again, thanks for watching, and I wish you all clear skies.